one more guest to go, and it's fitting that we end with this guest, another man that I've been trying to get on the show for a very long time. We've been talking all show long about Strikeforce's finale on Saturday night on Showtime, January 12th in Oklahoma City. He is the founder and CEO of the great promotion that is Strikeforce. He is Scott Coker, and he joins us right now, and I hear him laughing. Scott, how are you?
Oh, good. How are you, Ariel?
It's so good to hear from you, Scott. Wow. I mean, when's the last time we did an interview? I can't even remember. It is very good to hear from you. We appreciate you stopping by.
Yeah, I'm happy to be on.
Well, I'm wondering, someone who has poured so much into one thing, one company, it is who you are. We associate you with the brand. 5 days away from the final show, what are the feelings that you are feeling right now?
I tell you, it's been a long run. We started Strikeforce in 1992, actually, so it's been 20 years. We're going on 21 years now. And it started as a kickboxing brand. We had an ESPN2 deal. And, we promoted a lot of great fighters, a lot of great kickboxers, and even Connolly started on the old Strikeforce shows and eventually worked his way over to MMA. But over the 20 years, we did some great fights, and we did some big fights. We did some, just amazing, amazing events, and I'm so proud of what we accomplished. But you know what? 20 years is a long run, and I think that, this Saturday is, a culmination of all the hard work and effort, and to me, it's a time to celebrate and celebrate the 20 years of, the commitment to martial arts fighting, whether it was kickboxing or whether it was MMA or Sancho or whatever. That's really been my mission statement is, to make a contribution to the world of martial arts. And I think that I've done that.
So you're at peace with it. No what ifs in the back of your mind.
No, I'm at peace with it. And like I said, I think Saturday is going to be a celebration. We got a great fight card ahead on Showtime. And, if you look at that fight card from top to bottom, I'm so proud of what Sean put together for our last show. And then it's going to be time to move on.
So that's a very interesting last statement you make. Time to move on. We asked Dana White about this. He didn't give us many answers. What happens to Scott Coker on Sunday morning? Where do you go from there?
Well, I wake up and I head home and watch the NFL playoff games. In all seriousness, I do have a contract with Zuffa, which, I intend to honor, and so do they. And so, we're going to work together as far as the duties and regulations. The duties and responsibilities of exactly what that is. Ariel, honestly, I'll probably fly to Vegas in the next, 10 days or so, and we'll work all that out. But, my effort really right now is focusing on having a great show on Saturday night.
So, and just a couple more, like I said, with Dave Meltzer at the top of the show, contemporary questions, and then I want to, as you mentioned, celebrate and look back. Do you even want to stick around in the MMA business, or at this point, would you like to do something else? Like, now that you've had some free time, there hasn't been a show since August. Like, do you have any new hobbies? Are you doing anything else, new business ventures? What's going on in the life of Scott Coker?
Oh, boy, I tell you, it's been an interesting time. We've never really had that situation unfold in the past. But you know what? This is something that it just unfolded the way it did. And we've been waiting and waiting. And now they put together an amazing fight card. And if you look at it from top to bottom, this fight card on Saturday, it's unbelievable. Yeah, would I like to have Gilbert there to celebrate with us and Luke to celebrate with us? Sure. But, they got injured. But, to me, when you put on Gegard versus Mike Kyle and Jacare is going to fight Ed Herman, and Nate's going to fight Tarek, and Daniel Cormier is going to fight Dion. Josh Barnett's on the card. It's going to be something I'm going to be really, really proud of, and I'm so happy that we put together this fight, that's so stacked. And look at the undercard. I'm sure you heard, that we're going to have Roger Gracie fighting Anthony Smith, KJ. And KJ is a guy that I'm sure you heard, Errol. He started fighting for me when he was 16 years old as a kickboxer. And I had to get a note from his dad to allow him to fight in the state of California at that time. So here comes this kid. KJ was 16, and I said, I can't let you fight. And he said, no, my dad's here. And so I talked to the athletic commission, and they said, if the dad signs a waiver, you can allow him to fight in this amateur kickboxing fight. And that was the first time I met KJ, and he's fighting Ryan Couture, which is another kid that's on the way up and making a name for himself, and Tim Kennedy, and I'm really looking forward to just sit back, watch the show, and enjoy it.
You'll be there, right?
Of course.
Of course, of course.
Will you be there?
I will be there, Scott. I will be there proudly. And as I mentioned,
I tell you, then we'll have time to hang out.
we will have time to hang out. I can't wait. The Chesapeake Energy Arena in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. So I want to go back. You mentioned the decades, and you've been in the promoting business for a long time before you even got into MMA. But you made history March 10th, 2006, with that first show, the sanctioned show in California with Shamrock versus Gracie. Why did you even get into the MMA business? What about it attracted you, and what about it made you think that you can actually make Strikeforce into a viable MMA promotion?
I'll tell you, we were doing kickboxing at the time, and there was rumors that MMA was going to become legal in the state of California because, as you know, prior to that, it was illegal to do an MMA fight in the state. And so in 2005, I was told in the very beginning that MMA was going to become legal by the state of California, and we'll have it done by June of '05. And so I started talking to, some of the fighters, and I talked to Frank, and I said, look, if MMA is going to come to the state of California, I've had the longest license for 22 years, I believe, at that time, and I want to be the first one to throw it. And I said, I don't know, what's going to happen or how it's going to take or what it's going to be like, but I'd like to be the first one to do it. And MMA has always been around this area. AKA was around here, for many years before it got into mixed martial arts, and then the Frank Shamrock era, and then, Cesar Gracie had his great fighters here. So in the Bay Area, it's always been a hotbed of martial arts and kickboxers and traditional karate stylists and many schools and mixed martial artists. And so, it's always been around. So it was a gentleman by the name of Armando Garcia who had taken the position at that time. And I said, look, I want to do the first one. And then it kept pushed back. But as it was getting pushed back, I sat down with Frank Shamrock at the Starbucks right by here in San Jose, and I said, Frank, I really want you to come out of retirement and come fight for me because I want to be the first one to do this. And so he said okay, and then we identified Cesar Gracie as the opponent. We thought he had a high-profile name, and then we did the first show.
And that show was a huge success, right? Over 18,000 fans. It was a great undercard. I mean, you had names like Kung Lee on the card, Nate Diaz, Gilbert Melendez. I mean, it all clicked for you. The main event ended very quickly. What was your reaction to that? Like, did you think that was going to be a problem? I mean, you never know how fans will react to when they don't feel like they maybe get their money's worth. What do you recall your reaction being?
Well, you know what? I mean, mixed martial arts is a very fast, explosive, dynamic sport. And that's what happened. I mean, Cesar got caught with the right hand, and then the fight was over. But, that could happen at any event. But I'll tell you a little story before that. When I sat down with the arena, and I said, look, let's set this thing up for, 6,500 people, because that's really what I thought it would do, 65 or 7,000. And they said, okay, we scaled the ticket prices, and we did everything. And then we sold out of 7,000 probably 2 weeks out of the fight, and then we added more seats, and we added more seats. We just kept opening the arena, and finally, the day before the show, right before the weigh-ins, I got a call from the arena saying, "Hey, we sold out of all the tickets, so we were pretty much sold out." And I said, "Wow, well, why don't you just open up, the back sections behind the stage at that time?" And he said, no, you don't understand. We're completely sold out. And I said, really? I said, that's unbelievable. And I said, did you save me my seats for my guests? And he said, no, I didn't. So
Wow.
I'm scrambling around looking for tickets for my family and my guests. And so I just thought that was a pretty funny story because we had no idea how that show was going to do and how the fans were going to react. But at that time, Errol, it got some press, but it also got some a little bit of heat because it was a first sanctioned MMA event in California. A lot of the local media had no idea, what it's like because back then, think about it, The Ultimate Fighter was on Spike, I believe, but other than that, there was no major television backing it before that show except for The Ultimate Fighter and the UFC shows on Fox, I believe. But people say, "Oh, is this a human cockfighting? Is it Is it is it barbaric, and you're fighting in a cage? And these are kind of questions I'm getting from legitimate reporters here in the Bay Area. And the sport has come such a long way in the last 6-7 years that people forget it wasn't that long ago that it had that little taste to the mainstream media of what MMA was in their eyes compared to what it was in reality.
What always impressed me so much about the Strikeforce crew was it was a very small crew, but a very effective one. Like for that first show, the first couple of shows, how many people were working for Strikeforce?
Well, we probably had only a handful. I mean, we probably had about a dozen people. But, don't underestimate how powerful or how much strength a local sports franchise in their arena can bring to the table, because they're bringing all their resources to the table, and they're bringing all their executives to the table. I'm going to executive meetings on every Tuesday, management committee meetings with these guys, and there's 3 senior VPs, 1 president of the San Jose Sharks, and they're bringing all their marketing knowledge, all their their database of all their ticket sales for their season ticket holder base, and they're bringing a lot to the table. These are really smart guys that have put on how many events in that building, and we got the benefit of all that doing the deal that we did with them.
What I always found to be so fascinating, what I liked the most about Strikeforce, was that you were catering to your local market by putting on local draws. A lot of them were future stars, and they were great prospects. You had, a mix of, the household names, if you will, the older guys. You'd bring in a Vitor Belfort, an Alistair Overeem. You'd have a guy like a Bobby Southworth, who was local but also had some, pub on the national stage, The Ultimate Fighter. You'd have a guy like Kung Lee. You just had this amazing mix of talent, which no other organization, as far as building themselves up outside of the UFC, of course, has figured out in North America. They don't seem to be able to understand how to build up from the ground up and to eventually, make your way onto the national stage. What was the philosophy? Was that always the philosophy of Strikeforce, or did you realize at some point, wait, we can sort of cater to one sector of this audience and bring in these older guys and bring in these newer guys and kind of blend them together? Gilbert Melendez versus Josh Thompson, a perfect example of that. Was that always the philosophy of Strikeforce?
I've always believed that you got to have the local angle when you're promoting, and so we did a lot of that early on, and then we started building a little fan base and a bigger fan base, and then we got into MMA. It was like an explosion. That first event was an explosive event, and then what I did was I had a good relationship with Pride at the time, and then that's how we brought Alistair Overeem to fight Vitor Belfort in our second fight, which I don't think a lot of people remember because it wasn't on TV. It had no sponsorships. If you look at our shows, those first 2 years, they had no television distribution at all, and we were just a local event doing, I want to say, an amazing fight promotion with some amazing talent, and we were live event based, which means that we relied on ticket sales to make our revenue. But I've always believed in the local angle. But then we had the benefit of, bringing some fighters in from other organizations. But I've always believed this. You got to build, in the last 27 years of promoting, you can't just have 1 or 2 guys. You got to keep building the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. And that has always been the philosophy. And I think that it's proven that we've been good star builders, because look at the Daniel Cormier's, the Luke Rockholds, the Ronda Rouseys. The list goes on and on and on. These are just the recent guys, but with Kung Lee or Javier Mendez, who used to kickbox for me back in the '90s. And then before him there was a guy named Francis Farley, Chris Brinkerhoff, Sam Montgomery, and before that there was a guy named Bad Brett Hefton that fought on ESPN1 during the PK karate days. So you've always had to have that main event. So you better be, if you want to be a sustainable business in this field, you better be a good star builder, and then you can supplement that with buying a few stars here and there.
Are you surprised more people in this business now don't copy that model?
Well, you know what? I think that one of the advantages that we had here was we had a tremendous talent pool here. And like Josh Thompson was already here. Gilbert Melendez was already here. Nick Diaz is here. And the list goes on. Cormier is here. Luke Rockhold is here. And so basically it's, pulling these guys out, identifying the stars, and then building them. But we've always had the benefit of having the top gyms, around this area. And my first experience of MMA was walking into the gym at Javier's at AK on Hillsdale and seeing Brian Johnston, this big guy, and going, wow, what is he, what is this stuff he's doing? And, he was wrestling, he was grappling, and he was, kickboxing, and then eventually he fought in the original UFC back, I want to say, in 95 and 96, and then Frank Shamrock came, and then he developed this fight team, and then all those guys started coming when Frank was really in doing his MMA. And I remember the day he fought Tito Ortiz in 99, and I was like, wow, this is going to be a great fight. And I had no idea what, historic event that would be. And it's, again, it goes back to the Bay Area, I think, being a hotbed for martial arts of all kinds and MMA specifically now, because there's so many great gyms here in town.
One of the early highlights of my career was covering an MMA event at the Playboy Mansion. I went to the second one. That was a fun event. Joe Riggs was on the card, and some other names, Kazuo Masaki. How did you broker that deal?
I had a friend of mine that was doing boxing over at the Mansion, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come do a mixed martial arts show?" And I said, "Sure, why not? Let's go try it." So I talked to the guys at the HP, and I think logistics was probably the biggest challenge for that show, trying to get the TV truck in there and trying to get, all the production value done and just to make it a nice show. And I think, you were there. I think we accomplished that. What do you think?
I thought it was fun. I liked it. There was a gimmick. It's always fun when the venue is also part of the story. And I'm not sure how much money you made off it, but as far as visually, I thought it was fun. And it was great to cover it there.
Yeah, and, to have Hugh come out with his girls sitting in the front row, it was pretty fun. It was a great night, and, it was one of those things that I thought that at that time really worked for us, and then we moved on to, to do the different shows and different venues around the country, and, and I think one of the things that I'm really thankful to my guys over at Silicon Valley Sports Entertainment, Jim Goddard and Greg Jameson and Charlie Foss, is that, when they saw this MMA product, these are traditional sports guys. They really saw something in it and said, hey, let's get behind these guys. And I brought them the Pro Elite opportunity when, they were up for sale, or they were having a little hard time, I think, in 09 or 10. And, they went out and really committed to getting behind the sport, and that's how we ended up with all those great athletes that we ended up on our roster. And it didn't, and then it eventually got us to Showtime and then CBS deal, and that really changed the dynamics of what Strikeforce was, from a regional show to a national show doing 16 fights a year across the country, compared to 4 shows a year just in the Bay Area.
A real fun moment in the history of Strikeforce, I thought, was Shamrock Baroni. I loved the build-up. I loved the trash talking, the YouTube videos. I mean, it was really when the internet was, and MMA, it was being used perfectly by everyone involved, and it led to the pay-per-view fight. It was Elite XC and Strikeforce. How challenging was it to put on that fight, considering all the nonsense going on behind the scenes? It looked like it came off well and everyone was happy, but behind the scenes, what do you remember of that whole process?
I'll tell you, it was something I was really excited about, because I knew Phil and Frank were going to, promote it extremely well, and there was at that time some genuine dislike between those two guys. And Phil can sell a fight, and Frank can sell a fight, and so it was just great build-up, great hype, and it was a little challenging working with the old guard over at Elite XC, and we partnered. I think we co-partnered on that show, where it was a co-promotion. But we got through it, and that's probably one of our greatest produced shows that I think that we've done. We've spent more money on the production of that show than any other show I think we've done since then.
And also another great one was Shamrock versus Lee. That was a very big turning point for the company. You look back is there a favorite moment? I mean, there have been a lot. You know, you talk about the first one, the last two I mentioned. There's Verdum Fedor. There's the CBS shows. There's Carano Cyborg. I mean, we could list many here. But is there one moment fight that really sticks out as your favorite?
You know what? I'll tell you, and I can judge it by the fan response in the building, and that was the Shamrock versus Kung Lee fight. And we sold the venue half to Kung's fans and half to Frank's fans. And it was so electric in there. I've been to a lot of big fights, and this was right up there. And it was so loud you couldn't hear anything. And it was a moment that everybody thought that Kung was going to get his butt whooped by Frank, and it was going to be no fight. There was no contest. And I remember talking to Javier, and I said, well, what do you think about this fight? He said, I think Kung has a shot. Is he going to win? I don't know, but he has a shot. And so I said, look, I'm just looking for a fair matchup and a great main event. And it was, I think, one of the most electrifying nights of fights in the HP Pavilion, which is probably, I think, the greatest place to watch an MMA event in the United States. That building is built for mixed martial arts with the screens, the multimedia, everything. And I think Kung and Frank was probably the pinnacle of that. But like you said, there's so many great moments. And if you talk about the pillars of Strikeforce, really, it was Frank first in MMA, Kung, Gilbert, Josh. And then I would say the Carano Cyborg fight was after that. But the first four pillars that I mentioned with Frank, Kung, Gilbert, and Josh, those were the building blocks of our organization. And, I'll be grateful, forever to those guys for putting their hearts out and fighting their asses off, because really, without those four guys, I don't think we would have built this company into what it was.
Well, that is high praise. Is it fun for you, Scott, when you see like Kung fighting in Macau against Rich Franklin and doing what he did there? And, in the future, you're going to get a chance to see Gilbert fight in the UFC probably, and the return of Josh Thompson and some other Strikeforce guys that have come over, and Luke, who I know means a lot to you. I mean, when those guys are fighting now that you're in the position that you're in now, do you make it a point that you have to watch these fights? And does the fan in you kind of come out a little bit rooting for your guys?
You know what? Honestly, Errol, the fan of me has never left, and that's one of the reasons why I got into promoting. Is I would say, well, what if this guy fought this guy? Well, let's go promote it and see what happens. And so when Kung fights, man, I woke up at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. whatever it was to get up and watch. I will never miss one of his fights. And same thing with all my other guys. And you know what? That really, for the fans and for the fighters, it's really the beauty of the deal between Strikeforce and Zuffa as far as the buyout, because now as a fan you'll get to see Gilbert fight the UFC champion Ben Henderson, and you'll get to see Luke fight Silva eventually, and you'll get to see DC fight hopefully John Jones in the future. And I tell you, I like what I'm seeing out there with the results of these Strikeforce guys having great results in the UFC. These guys are amazing athletes. I'm going to be rooting for them. But now the fans get to see all the fights that they really wanted to see.
Any regrets?
Yeah, should have had more vegetables yesterday. But on a serious note, Errol, here's I would say the one black eye that I regret that we definitely fixed the situation after was the Nashville situation with the little thing with Mayhem Miller and the Diaz boys and all that. I think again, it's when you do something like that, it really goes against everything that I believe as far as trying to propel what martial arts is, trying to propel what mixed martial arts is, and trying to get away from the stigma of the past of what people believe that mixed martial arts is, and trying to put it in a first class light. And here we're on the Tiffany Network, and something like that happens. It's just not a good thing. And I was embarrassed by that. And but we made sure that never happened, after that, or even got close, because we set some new ground rules and regulations that prohibited people to come into the cage. And a lot of fighters weren't happy with it, but we definitely were not going to have that happen again, to us with the fighters. And and getting to the cage and creating some type of altercation with each other.
Looking back today, would you do the Elite XC deal again? Would you buy those assets? Do you think that was a smart move for Strikeforce?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, now you end up with 34. We probably end up, I don't know, with 50 or 60 athletes, and I would say 30 of them were, that's how we end up with Gina. We end up with Jake Shields, Robbie Lawler. A lot of those guys came from that contract or that deal, and they were fighting for Elite XC. And to me, that was the deal that really was the pivot point for us becoming from a regional, I would say a pretty top-notch regional show, doing amazing things, and switching the knob over to now becoming a national show. Like I said, on Showtime, on CBS, with major sponsors, and now we're doing 16 dates across the country instead of 4 dates just here in the Bay Area.
We spoke to Steven Espinoza in the first hour, the Executive Vice President of Showtime Sports. Want to get your take on this. What do you think happens to MMA on Showtime? Do you think it sticks around in some form? Do you think they'll hook up with someone else?
Oh, I think they'll be back. I mean, those guys definitely are really smart guys, great, television programmers. And really, Showtime is what built Strikeforce on their network and CBS. And without them, we wouldn't have the national platform to show all these, fighters and their talents across the country. And I think that we did some great work as far as getting some amazing fights together, did some great work together, getting some big ratings for Showtime. And I think it was just a great partnership. And I know that they believe in MMA, and at some point, I'm sure that they'll be back.
Will Scott Coker promote some kind of fighting again? Will you be involved in the promotion of combat sports at some point in the future?
Yes, and Ariel, I'll be involved in the fighting business this Saturday. So make sure that you're there. And make sure you tell all your listenership to tune in, because it's going to be a great show Saturday night.
I love that you're still a promoter. At the end of the day, you're a fan / promoter. You're promoting the fights. January 12th, of course, Strikeforce. By the way, one last thing before I let you go. What about kickboxing? Any chance you ever go back into that world?
I mean, you know what? To me, I love kickboxing. I love watching it. And like I said earlier, I have a relationship with Zuffa, and I intend to honor it. And and let's see what goes from there. But as far as being a fan of kickboxing, I love it, and I'm going to continue watching whatever kickboxing I can out there. And to me, it's okay to be a fan and sit home and watch TV and watch it on, because honestly, I feel like I said, 20 years of promoting. It's been actually 27 years, but Strikeforce has been, been around 21 years. And after 21 years, I feel like, look, it's okay to sit back and watch some of these shows.
Sure.
I don't have to jump in there and do it myself. I enjoy just sitting down and watching TV. In fact, I had a great time watching the Cain Velasquez fight on my iPad when I was traveling over the holidays. I mean, to me, it's I don't need to be there sometimes. I don't have to be at every fight or watch every fight, but the fights that I get to watch, I'm definitely enjoying them. And I'm a martial artist first, and I'm going to continue to support martial arts and contribute to martial arts because it's something that I believe in, and I've dedicated my whole life to trying to continue the growth of martial arts, and that's not going to stop. Errol, it's just going to go into a different fashion. That's all.
Cain Velasquez, a guy who in October of 2006 made his debut in Strikeforce. His MMA debut was in Strikeforce, so good nod there. By the way, you keep mentioning it. Just curious, I have to ask the question: how long is that Zuffa deal for? When does it expire?
Well, you know what? That's something I don't want to get into the contractual, relationship.
Sure.
Of course, I can't do that. But you know what? Maybe we can chat about it on Saturday when I see you.
I will be there with flying colors. And I have to say, just for a moment here, as I mentioned earlier, but I want to say to you, both to you and to all of the members of Strikeforce, Micah Framwitz as well, who one of the first organizations to give me my credential, to allow me to cover MMA events before other organizations wouldn't. It meant a lot. My first event was Melendez-Thompson 1 in 2008. And there was something magical about going to the HP Pavilion, San Jose, the other corner of the country. I remember even when Brock Lesnar was fighting Randy Couture in UFC, I couldn't go to that event. I couldn't cover it, so I was going to see Bobby Southworth versus Babalu and Kim Couture fighting for Strikeforce. I was proud to cover those events. I will truly, truly miss them, and I hope that you're around our sport for many years to come, because love covering you, love how much the fan in you comes out, love what you brought to the sport. I remember the moment with the iPad and the tournament, and when you'd come on this show many times. You've always been very, very good to me, and I truly, truly appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy Saturday night, because it is truly a celebration and a huge sort of party for everything that you've done for this sport, and you should be very proud of it, because Strikeforce, in my opinion, has a huge, huge footprint on this sport we called mixed martial arts.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. And, I'll be in New York probably sometime in February, and I'll come by and I'll come on your show again. We'll chat it up some more.
Great. Thank you so much, Scott. Enjoy Saturday night. And once again, congratulations on an amazing run for your promotion.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, there he is. Scott Coker, CEO, founder of Strikeforce. They closed the curtain on that promotion on Saturday night, January 12th, 8 p.m. Showtime Extreme, 10 p.m. Showtime. That is Eastern Standard Time. And it is a very good card, and I like the card. Of course, it's not Strikeforce champions. It's not Gilbert Melendez, Pat Healy. It's not Luke Rockhold, Lorenz Larkin, but it's still Daniel Cormier and Nate Marquardt and Tarek Saffiedine, Mike Kyle and Josh Barnett, Gegard Mousasi. I mean, Ed Herman, Jacare. And that Showtime Extreme card is interesting. It reminds me a lot of WEC 53, the final WEC card where a lot of the guys were fighting for their UFC future. I mean, you look at Ryan Couture, KJ Noons, is it win or go home? You look at Tim Kennedy, Trevor Smith. You look at Haja Gracie, Anthony Smith. Pat Healy fighting, a lot of interesting fights. Mike Kyle and Gegard Mousasi. It is a very interesting card, and I look forward to being there on Saturday night.